My black people, once again, welcome to Africa Renaissance Show. And my people, the back and forth between the country of Niger and France is becoming more interesting by the day. Well, as you remember, last week Niger gave directions that the French ambassador in the country should leave the country within 48 hours. Then the French ambassador responded and stated that he does not recognize the legitimacy of the new government in Niger and that he would never, respect their orders to vacate the country. Well, Niger saw it necessary now to cancel the visa of the French ambassador in the country, but still the French ambassador refused to vacate the country. And Niger now decided to take a further step. And this is where they, stopped supplying the French embassy with water and electricity, and even stopped the local businessmen in the country, to supply food in the French embassy in the country. And my people, when I think about this set of events, between Niger and the French ambassador, this back and forth, I remember about, the proverbial different ways to kill a cat, You may either poison it, you may trap it, or you might decide to use gum to trap the rat. So in our context, I don't know which strategy, which of the three ways is going to be effective in killing the rat in this instance. My black people, this phenomenon where the French treat Africans in a condescending and paternalistic manner is not a new one, and no African president has best highlighted, this phenomenon than President Tshisekedi of the DRC at a time last year when President Macron visited the country. And before we proceed, have a look at this video and then we'll discuss afterwards.
C'est justement ça qui doit changer dans nos rapports avec la France en particulier, mais l'Europe en général, l'Occident. Votre façon de voir les choses lorsqu'elles se passent en Afrique. Quand il y a des irrégularités aux élections américaines, on ne parle pas de compromis à l'américaine. Lorsqu'en France, il y a plusieurs années maintenant, lors des années Chirac, il y a eu un scandale sur des électeurs décédés qu'on a fait voter, on ne parlait pas de compromis à la française. Je crois qu'il doit y avoir du respect dans la considération que nous avons les uns envers les autres. Regardez-nous autrement, en nous respectant, en nous considérant comme de vrais partenaires, et non pas toujours avec un regard paternaliste, avec l'idée de toujours savoir ce qu'il faut pour nous, et non pas pour...
My black people, President Macron has stated on various occasions that he is different from the former presidents of France and that he does not, support the oppression of African countries which were previously colonized, by the French. So Macron has been attempting to distinguish himself from the former presidents of France, and he wanted, to fool Africans that he is different and that, he would support, the development in African countries. But the events in Niger have, made the true qualities of Macron come out. And we have come to a point where we realize that all the statements that Macron has been making in the past, were a deceptive tactic. They were meant, to distract us, and see Macron for who he is, and also see the country of France for what it is, an oppressor of African countries for a long period of time. This is because after the French ambassador refused to, quit from the country of Niger, Macron made a statement, praising the ambassador for not leaving the country. And President Macron also reiterated the fact that France is not going to take orders from an illegitimate regime, you know. And this goes on to demonstrate the kind of contempt, you know, and the hypocrisy of France in dealing with African countries. And why do I say this? I say this because if I may give an example with the West Africa country of Cameroon, you know, the current president of Cameroon became president of that country via a coup, and it is now 42 years ever since, Paul Biya became the president of Cameroon. All the while, France has been very consistent, you know, in supporting Paul Biya to continue being the president of Cameroon, despite the fact that it is now evident that his mental faculties, you know, are not working very well. But France continues to support Paul Biya to continue serving as the president of Cameroon, despite there being evidence that he is incapable of leading the country anymore. So this, makes us realize that the issue is in Niger. It's not that the new regime has come to power through the way of a coup, but rather that France does not have had to play in the recent coup. In fact, I think the coup that happened in the country of Niger caught the French unawares. And this is why they are very frustrated, you know, because the new regime that is leading the country right now, you know, it is not propped up by the French. And obviously, they want a hand to play in the coup of that country so that they can continue exploiting the minerals of the country and paying for a song, you know, for the minerals. My people, Paul Biya is the kind of president who spends most of his time in France instead of spending most of his time in Cameroon, you know, and providing leadership for his people. But because Paul Biya, you know, allows for the French to take advantage of 95% of the natural resources of the country of Cameroon, this is where the 95% of the natural resources of Cameroon are used in France, you know, for the development of French infrastructure, for the payment of French health systems, and also for the, you know, payment of French education systems at the expense of the interests of the people of Cameroon. Now that Paul Biya is a puppet and he complies as, you know, the French people require him to do, you know, there is no problem despite the fact that he became a president of Cameroon, you know, via a coup. And my people, what I want to say is that, you know, the hypocrisy of the French by the way in which it is coming out of the current crisis in Niger, it is unprecedented. And the reason why I say this is because France is one of the countries that has experienced a number of revolutions in the past, you know. In the past, France used to have an absolute monarchy, but it reached a point where the people of that country revolted and abolished, you know, the monarchy. Now, the actions of France in Niger, you know, can be likened to what happened in France in the past. This is because what has happened in the country of Niger is nothing short of a revolution. Now, my question is, or my issue is that, can we also say that unless, you know, the country of France reinstates the absolute monarchy that used to happen in the past, that we are not going to have any dealings with the French? Because what they are doing is exactly similar if we were to make such a demand to the French today. So what I would like to say is that the country of France has demonstrated that it has no respect for the sovereignty of African countries. It has no respect for the internal affairs, domestic and internal affairs of African countries. And time has come for the French, to stop this type of condescending attitude and behavior towards African countries. And if they are not going to stop this, we must be ready as Africans to force the French to stop this bad behavior. And that's all that I have for today. If you would like to watch more of this content, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Goodbye.